The Cardinals have announced a resolution to the Bally Sports Midwest saga, and they've got a TV deal secured for the coming years. What's going on, everyone, and welcome into this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Thursday, November 7th, 2024, breaking down some more Cardinals offseason news that's coming hot and heavy in recent days. We talked yesterday about the news that Willson Contreras would be moved to first base/DH for 2025. Scroll back on your podcast feed or here on the Brenden Schaeffer St. Louis Cardinals Writer YouTube channel if you missed that yesterday. We're going to talk in this episode, though, about the news that came out Thursday that the Cardinals have a plan. They've got a TV deal secured with the entity formerly known as Bally Sports Midwest. It's now called FanDuel Sports Network, and the FanDuel Sports Network Midwest entity will be carrying Cardinals games the way it was announced by St. Louis. I'll just read you the tweet. FanDuel Sports Network will continue as the television home of the Cardinals. We have reached a new multi-year digital rights agreement with FanDuel Sports Midwest, which for the first time will include a direct-to-consumer streaming option for fans within the extensive Cardinals TV territory. So that's news dropping from the St. Louis Cardinals earlier on Thursday. I have an instant reaction to this, which is that it is good news for Cardinals fans who want to be able to watch the Cardinals. Period. I think for virtually everybody at this point, you're going to have the opportunity to do it if you want to. Whether that's via the MLB TV subscription, if you subscribe to that and get all the MLB games across the league, except for where some folks might be blacked out from certain entities, you're mostly able to watch the Cardinals games through that. Right now, if you live in, say, Cincinnati, or if you live in Seattle, or wherever you might be, but you want to watch the Cardinals, typically, you're able to do that through the MLB TV subscription that you have already. If you're an out-of-market Cardinals fan, you're watching all those games except for when the Cardinals are playing against a team that is in the geographic location where you live, right? If you live in Seattle and the Cardinals are playing Seattle, well, you're going to have to watch those games on the local network, whether it's Root Sports Midwest, I think, up in Seattle, or whatever is used there in the Cincinnati area, or, there's some geographic locations in this country where you might have multiple teams crossing over. And so if the Cardinals are playing those teams, and I think this is applicable to folks in the Midwest where there may be some gray area, you're obviously not able to use your MLB TV app for those games, but there should be a way locally for you to watch those games. And if you don't want to have a cable subscription, all right, you might miss a few games a year because of that. And some fans have to deal with that more than others if there are, like I said, multiple MLB franchises with broadcast rights wherever you happen to live. So, that would be the exception here still. But for folks that are listening to this podcast and you live in St. Louis or you live in the general TV market that offers Cardinals baseball, so if the local cable subscription, whatever you might have in your area, as long as it has an agreement with what was previously known as Bally Sports, because I know that some of them do not. DirecTV for a while did or didn't. Dish maybe doesn't. Spectrum, I believe, has it. So, there's some that do not, and you guys are probably more intimately familiar with which currently do and do not than I am, because I haven't had or needed a cable subscription to watch Cardinals games for some time, so I'm not necessarily as up to date on the ins and outs of that. But the point is, now that won't really matter. If you are in a geographic location where you could, if you wanted to, buy a cable subscription, which is inflated and probably $100 a month. And so for many folks, that's why you don't do it. And you'd rather buy the MLB TV app, but they won't let you watch Cardinals games on that because you are in the Cardinals broadcast area, the TV territory as it's known. This is a game changer for you because now you will be able to watch Cardinals games on this. It's going to be an app. You'll be able to probably access it via your laptop as well with a website, I would presume. And presumably even a smart TV app that, you are able to access there. It'll be, FanDuel Sports Network app or whatever it is. And if you have a smart TV, that should allow you to, after you pay the monthly fee, watch Cardinals games in a direct-to-consumer format without having a cable subscription required. This is the first time that will be the case. For Blues fans, that's already been something that I think their app allows for you to do if you're in the TV market of what had been Bally Sports Midwest. You've been watching Blues games that way, and I believe that cost has been around $20 a month. The thing we don't know yet, let's talk about some of the stuff we don't know. We don't know the cost of this thing just yet. The Cardinals are going to roll that out. I had speculated a number of weeks ago when I first Did a podcast about this topic when it seemed as though the Bally Sports thing was going to come to an end potentially based on the court filings that we were having come out at the time. I had said, if it's $30-$40 a month, that wouldn't necessarily surprise me because I just feel as though this is something that the Cardinals understand people are going to want, and so they're going to be able to jack the price up on it a little bit relative to, what you might have experienced with the Blues thing being $20 or your Netflix subscription is sub $20, things like that. I thought, it might be a little bit higher. We don't know yet exactly what it's going to be. However, and I expect more reporting to happen on this, and somebody might uncover more details about this next aspect of what I'm going to talk about. But if the Blues currently have a deal, it's $20 a month, and it's on the FanDuel network, like it's the same channel, it's the same entity. Could the Cardinals conceivably do a combo where if you're already subscribed to the Blues one, now there's going to be a new offering that for $30 a month total, you get both? Or are the Cardinals going to insist that our thing has to be separate so that we're getting all the profits and the revenue from it? And then if that's the case, it might be similar to the Blues. It might be $20 a month. It might be $25, whatever. But then if you want to watch both, is there a combo option? That's the part that I'll be curious to see, because it would make sense if it was, $30 to $35 a month, you could get both if the teams are both on board with it. I see no reason why the Blues wouldn't be on board with it, because you might have, it's just a reality of the markets. I think there are more ardent Cardinals fans than there are Blues. People that love the Blues, but I mean, you can look at our numbers here on this YouTube channel. At least right now, Cardinals content definitely performs better than Blues content. The interest is higher, and it's not even during the Cardinals' regular season. It's the off season. So I wonder what that might end up looking like if, the Blues could maybe say, yeah, we would be happy to go in on a combo option. But I don't think the Cardinals would say the combo option could be the only thing, because the Cardinals wouldn't want to necessarily leave subscribers on the table for folks that are not hockey fans. They wouldn't want to pay $34.99 a month. And I'm just throwing the numbers out there. Hopefully you kind of understand where I'm getting them, but I'm making it up. They wouldn't necessarily want to pay $34.99 a month and be told you're getting two things. You're getting Blues, so you're saving, because those fans might say, well, I don't watch the Blues. I'm just a baseball fan, and I would rather pay $20 a month to just get Cardinals. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I feel like the combo, if you said 20 plus 20 equals 40, to make it worthwhile to folks to do both, you would have to slash it down into that $30 to $35 a month range. But then it's also interesting because the Cardinals don't play year round, and neither do the Blues. So how does that work? Is it the sort of thing where people are going to cancel the app in the off season for the sports? So it's not a year round cost, or is there going to be content that they try to keep you to pay year round? Or is it going to be like, NFL Sunday Ticket, you pay for it, it's, a half the year or whatever it is, and then you have to re-up again for it the following year, rather than a month to month. It's a all-in price. Like, the exact price points I think are going to be kind of interesting, but all in all, if you listen to my podcast a few weeks ago that sort of outlined, I could see $30 to $40 a month for just the Cardinals, I think I overshot it, and you might actually get it for cheaper, because I've heard recent interviews with Bill DeWitt III. I know he was on 101 ESPN with BK and Ferrario within the last couple of weeks, and he said, I don't have an exact price. We are going to have this app, and when we do, the information will come out. But around the league, around that $19, $20 a month is something that's kind of been the price point. So I wouldn't expect it to be crazy higher than that for just getting the Cardinals. But again, is that for 6 months out of the year? Is that something that it's a year-round cost? Because obviously with cable, the previous way to get these games was via cable, and you're paying for cable the whole year round. And that's $80, $90, $100 a month, but you're only watching the Cardinals for half of the calendar. So do you cancel your cable in the offseason? That's a little bit more tricky. It would obviously be easier to facilitate the half-year model with something like this, because all you're getting is the sports teams that you're wanting to pay to watch. So I think it's interesting. I think largely this is a good thing for fans, because, again, you're not going to have cable to watch the Cardinals. And what that's going to mean for cable is fascinating, because, and this is an interesting aspect of it too, a lot of you guys out there might say, I don't really care about the streaming thing. I don't need it. I have cable. I'm happy to keep it because I use it for other reasons. As long as I keep the Cardinals on there, I'm good. I don't need to change anything. But what happens if a lot of the folks that have cable go, yep, I don't need cable. I have been paying for it because I wanted the Cardinals, but it's been a nuisance. It's $100 a month. I don't need it. This new thing's $25 a month. I'm cutting cable. Cable's going to lose even more subscribers. What happens then to cable that's like, well, to make the deal with FanDuel Sports still worthwhile, we're going to need the numbers to be different because, we're not getting the bang for our buck to have them on there. Like, it's going to be interesting to see if, while the Cardinals are saying, yeah, your cable subscription, if you've got FanDuel, you'll keep FanDuel, but we know that those TV rights deals with the networks have been issues for Dish and for different entities over the years. So I wonder if enough people are saying, I'm getting rid of cable now because I have another way to be able to watch the Cardinals. What happens to that relationship between cable and Bally Sports, FanDuel Sports? It's going to take a while for me to get that right. But that's another aspect of it that I think is interesting. Let's talk about the angle, though, of, okay, does this solve the Cardinals' problem? We've been talking a lot about they're going to lower payroll, decrease spending because of the uncertainty surrounding the TV situation. They didn't have a multi-year agreement, right? They had an old deal that was going to net them something like 70 some odd million bucks a year for the next several years. And Bally Sports said, we can't do that anymore. If you want to stay with us, A, we're calling ourselves FanDuel now, get over it. And B, we're going to have to give you less money. We're going to have to come to an agreement on a lower amount. The key to all of this is going to be, what's that lower amount? And are we going to get our hands on knowing exactly how many years this is locked in for? Because when the Cardinals say we have reached a multi-year agreement, all right, that sounds like at least 2. Is it longer than that? How far into the future does this extend to where you can have confidence that the Cardinals can have confidence anyway, that this is going to be their TV home for the foreseeable future? And what's the amount? Because if FanDuel Sports, Bally Sports, Diamond Sports Group, which is the parent company, if they said to the Cardinals, you were making $70 million a year from us, we're not paying you that, but we'll do 50, or we'll do 35, or we'll do 25, or we'll do 60. Like, what's that difference? What is the differential between what the Cardinals thought they were going to be getting and then had uncertainty about it, not only for 2025, but beyond that? And then what's the number that they actually landed on? Will there be somebody that reports that detail? I think eventually that'll come out. And then we'll be able to have a decent idea for how this impacts the payroll, not only this year, but long term. I feel as though this year's not really going to change a lot. The plan has already been laid out for this coming year. And while I think the TV situation was part of it, it wasn't necessarily part of it from just a perspective of like, this year we're going to be doomed, so we have to cut. No, it was kind of in conjunction with the fact that they haven't been performing on the field. They've been neglecting the minor league operation, the player development operation, and they're deciding to devote more resources toward that in conjunction with a decline to major league spending. Now, I've continued to talk about how Cardinals fans that are upset about this have a right to be, and they shouldn't necessarily just let the Cardinals off the hook for the way that this is going to unfold, where if you look at the numbers and say, well, if the Cardinals end up trading Nolan Arenado, which is going to be another podcast that we have to talk about, because based on the reports that came out yesterday, it sounds like Wilson Contreras is going to stay. It seems as though Sonny Gray would like to remain a Cardinal. Didn't hear that from anybody about Arenado, and he's obviously got a big salary attached. So if you're able to move that salary and not have to eat a bunch of the costs to make him go away like the Rockies did in the first place when he came to St. Louis, then the Cardinals are going to save there. They're going to save on Goldschmidt because they're not bringing him back. They're going to save on the 3 guys that they declined the options for: Middleton, Gibson, Lance Lynn. That's cost savings. Now, what do they do with Ryan Helsley, who's going to be due a huge raise, but they might trade him, so they might save there compared to what he made in 2024. What do they do with Miles Mikolas? Are they able to make a trade of him or Steven Matz and get anybody to eat some of that money, right? It's not going to be all of it if either of those guys are dealt. I think the Cardinals end up having to eat some of that cost to make those guys go away. If it's not something they can facilitate where teams aren't even willing to spend any money to have those guys in their rotation next year, then they're probably still on the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are just paying them their full salaries because they floated them into the trade market and nobody bit. So rather than just cut them, you might as well put them on your roster and see how many innings they can give you, because competitiveness is not the number one goal in 2025. It's like all of these are questions floating around, but the bottom line is going to be the payroll is going down. But I would say that as far as continuing to think toward the future, 2026, 2027, today's news is positive in that it was described as a multi-year agreement. Now, I guess what would be to keep FanDuel Sports Network and Diamond Sports Group from reneging on that a year from now and say, nope, sorry, I know that last year we owed you $70 million. We said we can't do that. We signed a new deal that said $50 million, and now we can't even do that, so we're saying that it no longer applies. That would be very bad for the relationship between the Cardinals and FanDuel Sports Network. I guess in theory it could happen, but that would basically be, I think, a death knell if they came back a year from now and said, haha, just kidding, bait and switch. We can't give you the money we were supposed to give you for 2026. We're going back on our deal a second time. If that ends up being the case, I think that will be probably the final straw with the Cardinals, where they are going to, do their own operation or go in conjunction with the MLB Advanced Media or whatever they're calling that at this point. That's going to be running the broadcast for a number of MLB teams this coming season. If they try this again, I think that would probably be the end of the relationship. But let's just assume that this multi-year new agreement is one that's going to work out. Let's assume that because they called it multi-year, it might only be for 2, but maybe it's for 3. And we're talking 25, 26, 27 at that point. If nothing else, you're feeling much better, I think, about 2026 revenues, having some certainty there than you were before. Again, until we get the number on what the annual revenue from this deal is for the Cardinals, it's hard to speculate too specifically on what it could mean for the 2026 payroll. But basically, the Cardinals are feeling probably a little more safe about where things stand, because they at least know the number. They don't have to be wondering if the entire bottom is going to drop out, and they're going to have to do their own TV operation sooner rather than later, run it, assume the costs for it, and then have to factor in how much money we can make off this thing. They're still using the middleman. It's just FanDuel Sports Network now. It's not a lot's really going to change other than the colors on the broadcast. FanDuel has blue. I don't know if they're going to be able to do red. FanDuel's very much known for their branding as blue. Bally kind of fit because they're red and the Cardinals are red. We'll see what that ends up looking like. That's a side quest here, not really a main aspect of this. But I think for 2026, and I've already told you, I think the Cardinals could be up and running again, maybe not quite to payroll levels of 2024, but I could see big drop-off. Let's say you retain Wilson, you retain Sonny Gray, but you do trade Arano and you get rid of most of that money. You have Mikolas back, but after 2025, his money's gone. Steven Matz's money is gone. You do trade away Helsley, so you save a little bit of money there. The payroll goes way, way down. But then for 2026, you're actually able to go back into free agency a little bit more aggressively, accounting for the Mikolas money being gone, the Matz money being gone. Yes, guys will continue to get raises through arbitration. Yes, you'll probably need to sign extensions for players that you want to be a part of your future, whether it's Donovan, whether it's Newt Barr, guys in that, age range. Mason Wynn's going to come around at a certain point. What's Jordan Walker look like? Like, eventually those conversations will start to happen too. But I think by 2026, the Cardinals could basically have looked at their team in 2025 and said, here's what happened. Here's who we found out about. These guys are that we didn't really know of as proven players before 2025. Guess what? The season happened, and they ended up being pretty solid producers. So now we can count on them and say he's the second baseman, or he's in our rotation, or whatever that could look like. And then they could go out in free agency as early as 2026 and be a little bit more aggressive in bringing in core pieces again. Again, I think they'd be using some of the Mikolas money, the Matz money to offset. And I don't know whether 2026 payroll would be higher than 2025, but my guess is that it will be, even if it's not substantially so. I think if it was 180 last year and it goes to 130, 140, I truly still don't know what it's going to be. The fact that we seemingly are getting information on the Cardinals publicly, or at least via, I think it was Derek Gould that reported about Sonny Gray wanting to stay. That was via a source of his, so that's not something Mo said publicly to reporters. But if Gray stays, obviously that's still a big amount on the payroll, and they're only going to be able to trim so much off of it if they don't trade away Sonny Gray and Contreras. But it seems like they're not going to trade Contreras. I would say it's more likely than not that Gray stays as well, although I don't think that's definitive yet. It's pretty definitive, in my opinion, when it comes to Wilson. Like he's saying, staying. I don't think Mo comes out and says everything he said yesterday unless they're going to keep him. It would be quite the about face. So he's staying, in my opinion. I'm probably 60-40 that Sonny stays, whereas before Sonny saying he wanted to stay I was probably closer to 40-60. I was probably going to say he has a decent chance to go because even though he's got a big contract, it's only for 2 years, and he's a very productive player, so teams would have had interest in probably assuming some of that contract and giving the Cardinals a prospect or two to do it. But if he wants to stay, that makes me lean toward he probably will be able to stay unless the Cardinals are really trying to slash payroll. I think as this offseason began, the Cardinals knew they needed to probably move one big contract, and without saying it at the time, that contract is seemingly Nolan Arenado's, and that might be the one that is most easily moved because the player's happy to do it, and he, if he doesn't want to stay, and the Dodgers are going to be sitting there. Now, the problem is the Dodgers might be the only team that is interested in Arano, if they are at all, and that means the Cardinals don't have leverage. So that could get tricky, and you're going to not like the return on Arano if he gets moved, is my opinion. But from their perspective, it's how much money can we save? And that, again, that's not going to be fun for anybody, but also I think it can allow a fresh slate to be able to look at the roster more cleanly in 2025 and have a better idea of where you're moving toward in the future. The FanDuel news from Thursday at least puts you in the spot, if you're the Cardinals, of having the ability to set expectations for revenues from that side. And look, the part that's unknown is, well, how many people are going to subscribe via the app itself? That's the revenue that the Cardinals are generating on that front. Like this rights agreement, I believe, now maybe I've got this wrong, it may be that the Cardinals agreed with FanDuel of this is how much you're paying us, and you guys are going to get all the revenue from however many subscribers sign up. Or it may be that the Cardinals, baked into that deal, said, all right, this is the amount that you're paying us for the rights, but we get X percentage of every subscription. That's revenue coming to us, not to you, right? So however they did that deal, it's going to depend on whether or not the number ends up mattering. Because if the Cardinals were running their own app, obviously the more subscribers they get, the better for the Cardinals. But if FanDuel is saying, no, it doesn't matter how many you get, we trust we're going to get a bunch, and it's going to be on us to market it that way and get them in the door, but we're going to give you more money on the front end because you're letting all the revenues and the profits come to us based on how many subscribers come. Like, I don't know the answer. That's something that may be known within the next 8 hours if somebody reports it. But I think that's going to be an interesting aspect of this as to how, and I hope that makes sense in the way I'm describing it. Does it matter how many subscribers they get? Because the more subscribers they get, the Cardinals get more revenue, or is all that revenue going to FanDuel, and on the front end, the Cardinals were just able to get a higher amount from FanDuel Sports Network in order to make this agreement? My assumption is the Cardinals have baked in some way that getting more subscribers is better for the Cardinals, but I don't know the details of the deal. Nobody has released them yet as of this recording. So that's kind of something to look at. But on the grand scheme, if we're looking at this from a 10,000-foot helicopter view, I think this is very good news for, Cardinals fans who want to be able to watch the team and not have to be wasting money on a cable subscription that you didn't want just to be able to watch the Cardinals. If you don't watch all the other cable channels, you are overpaying relative to what you're going to be able to pay for this direct-to-consumer model. I think it's good news for the Cardinals to know the certainty of what their revenues are going to be, but I can't say with certainty at this moment that the revenues were good compared to the previous deal because we don't know the number. What's the differential between what they were getting paid by Bally Sports Midwest yearly and what they're going to be getting now from FanDuel? And does the number of subscribers help the Cardinals, give them upside for more potential revenue? Those are the things that I don't know yet, that I am sure we will know very soon as it gets reported or as details come out. So that's kind of where things stand. I do intend to do more discussion on the specifics of the roster side of things after the news from Wednesday. Wilson Contreras is going to play first base. He's not going to catch anymore. That's going to have ripple effects, and whether or not and for what they trade Arano and Sonny Gray is going to have ripple effects as well. So I want to get nitty-gritty into those conversations, but this TV news situation coming up, that had to be the podcast for today for sure. Some days I'll be able to do a second video like I did yesterday talking Kyle Hendricks, but this one was obviously the biggest story today. we've got all off season to see what happens on the personnel side. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the new deal with FanDuel. Let me know in the comments what your questions are. What maybe do you still not know for sure after listening to this, and you would like to see if I can answer those questions for you, or if anybody out there can. We'll drop it in the comments on YouTube or on Spotify. You can do comments there now, and we'll see if we can't get you the resolution on those. But continue to listen, continue to subscribe, and follow the podcast on the various YouTube and Spotify outlets for Cardinals coverage all off season long. Appreciate you guys as always, and we will talk to you next time on b-schaeff Daily. Peace.